All right, we'll say good morning. Let us begin with a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us. Actually, a very exciting daf ahead of us today. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors, our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Menachem and Susie Schoenfeld, for dedicating the Sherman Drushos this month in memory of their grandparents, Moshe ben Shimon Lev Halevi, Sarlea bas Dov Ber, Menachem Mendel ben Dov Ber, Sari Yita bas Yaakov Sender, Noach ben Avram, Fega bas Meir, David Shimon ben Yisrael, and Sarah bas Yaakov. We thank our Week of Learning sponsor, Jack Bennett, for dedicating the Shiurim this week in memory of Sgan Uriel Peretz, who served as a platoon commander in the 51st Battalion of Golani Brigade and died in a Hezbollah ambush in southern Lebanon in 1998. We also thank Adam and Leslie Rosen for dedicating all of the Shiurim this week in honor of all the mental health care workers. Hashem should give them strength, support, and knowledge to care for their patients and themselves during the pandemic. We also thank our DAF sponsors for today, Jack Bennett, for dedicating gratitude to the frontline healthcare community, for taking care of our friends, family, friends, and neighbors, beautiful, and to thank Benny Goldberg for dedicating the shir this morning, the Ilui Nishmas, his mother, Fega Rezel Bas Zelig Zichron Livracha. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas have an aliyah, and that indeed HaKadosh Baruch Hu provides care, shmir yasir, and wisdom to our healthcare workers, who are one of our greatest treasures during these difficult times. So we'll say with that, let us begin. So we have a beautiful daf out of us today. Today's daf is Ayin Gimel 73, and we are starting on Ayin Gimel 73, and we are picking up Va'abaye, which is 2, 4, 5 lines down from the top on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph. Va'abaye. So we'll say, remember again, just to reorient ourselves a little bit. I realized that I got a little bit ahead of myself yesterday and already told you the halacha l'maisa, when the Gemara is still going to develop it a bit more. But we'll review again. So remember again, we left off with a machlokes Abaye and Rava regarding the concept of misasek. So remember again, here is what we know. Shogeg, right? Shogeg means a person has intention for the act, but l'maisa did not realize that the act was prohibited, or did not realize that today was Shabbos. Remember again, the simple example was, Reuven goes out on Shabbos, he picks out an apple off the tree. He wants an apple. So his intention is to pick the apple off the tree. Either he didn't realize that picking an apple off a tree is prohibited on Shabbos, or halacha l'maisa, he forgot that it was Shabbos. Either way, he intentionally goes ahead and does this. That is shogeg. There's intentionality for the act, but a fundamental lack of understanding the act was prohibited or that today is Shabbos. Misasek, on the other hand, as we developed it yesterday, means I have intention to do something that is 1,000% permitted, but inadvertently, in the course of me doing something permitted, something prohibited occurred. So everyone agrees that in concept, misasek is pater. The machlokes Abaye and Rava is the definition of misasek, specifically in the following case. I'm cutting up cucumbers that are detached from the ground, totally permitted, and in the course of cutting up the cucumbers, what happens? I end up cutting up one that is attached to the ground. So Rava said, pater, that's misasek. You had in mind to do something ultimately that was permitted. It inadvertently occurred something prohibited, but that's misasek. You're totally pater. Abaye says you're chayiv. Why? Because in that case, your intention was for cutting. So because your intention was for cutting, I know your intention was to go ahead and cut something permitted, but you ended up cutting something prohibited. That's not called misasek. That's not called misasek, and therefore, according to Abaye, that would essentially be a shogeg. Be a shogeg. The only type of case, according to Abaye, that's real misasek is when, the first case of the Gemara yesterday, I dropped the knife in the garden, I'm picking up my knife, totally permitted, and on the course of picking up my knife, I end up detaching a vegetable. That, says Abaye, is misasek. But the case of cutting, actively cutting, is not misasek. So Abaye, shagag below miskaven hechidami. So we'll say, according to Abaye, I'm sorry, we left off further. Itmar, I'm sorry, we left off with the 2 dots, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines down from the top. Say Itmar. So we'll say along the same line, some more machlokes Abaye and Rava, really interesting cases. Niskavim lizrok shtein b'zarak arba. Listen to this case. I had intention to throw an object 2 amos, but instead it traveled 4 amos. Okay, so we'll say what's the halacha. Now remember again, for Shabbos, One is only chayiv if you transport an item dalit amis on Shabbos. So I only had intention to throw it 2 amis. So right, so from a certain perspective, at the end of the day, again, I did something that I had in mind to do something permitted. Now again, I will say, obviously, ideally one shouldn't transport anything, but lamaisa, transporting something under dalit amis is mutter on Shabbos. So I had in mind to throw it only 2 amis. It went 4 amis. So what's the halacha? Rava Amar Pater. Rava says you're Pater. Abayi Amar Chayiv. And Abayi says you're Chayiv. Why? Rava Amar Pater. Dulo Kama Chayivin Lizrika De'arba. So Rava says you're Pater. Why? Very simple. I will say my intention was to do what? My intention was to do a permitted act. It was permitted. So because ultimately, again, my act was permitted, the fact that it inadvertently became something prohibited, that's called misasek. And therefore I'm Potter. Abayi Amar Chayiv. Abayi says I'm Chayiv. Why? This is actually quite interesting. Daha kamechavin lezrika ba'alma. So Abayi says I am Chayiv. Why? Because at the end of the day, I had kavana for zrika. I had kavana to throw. It's true that my kavana, my intention was going to throw 2 amis, and then ended up going 4 amis. So we'll say, so we should begin to see it as follows. According to Abaye, the definition of misasek is your intention was for action A, but then action B occurred. A totally unanticipated action occurred. But according to Abaye, if you have in mind for a permitted form of action A, but instead a prohibited form of action A occurs, Abaye says that's not called misasek. That's called shogeg. That's called shogeg. And remember again, as we've seen, shogeg, although again it's still an accident, but lamaisa shogeg still comes with some level of liability. So the Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says, listen to this next case. So the Gemara says, if a person thought that, let's say again, he was carrying something or throwing something in Rishus HaYachid, but it turns out that he was throwing something in Rishus HaRabim. So we'll say, so right, he's just throwing stuff, and he thought that he's throwing things in a private domain where it is permitted to go ahead and throw something, and it turns out that in fact he's throwing it in a public domain. So we'll say, so Rava Amar Pater. Rava says you're Pater. Va'Abaye Amar Chayiv, and Abaye says you're Chayiv. Rava Amar Pater Daha Lo Mechavin Lizrika Di Isura. So Rava said you're Pater. Why? Because Rava say my intention was not to throw something in a prohibited way. Fakir, just the opposite. My intention was to throw something in a prohibited way. I thought I'm standing in a private domain. I thought I'm standing in Rosh HaYachid. So at the end of the day, I thought I was doing something permitted. I ended up doing something prohibited. That's misasek. Abayi Amar Chayiv Tuhamechavin Lizrika Ba'alma. Abayi says that I'm Chayiv. Why? Because at the end of the day, my intention was for Zrika. So let's remember again. So 3 cases, all the same idea. First case, the knife that falls into the garden. Second case, ultimately, again, I had in mind to throw 2 amis. I ended up throwing 4 amis. Case number 3, I thought that I was throwing in Rishus HaYachid. It turns out that I'm throwing in Rishus HaRabim. In every single one of those cases, so I'm sorry, actually case number 1 is I'm cutting up cucumbers that are detached, and I end up cutting up a cucumber that's attached. So I will say in every single one of those cases, Rava says, you're Pater. You're Pater. Why? That's misasek. Anytime you have in mind to do something permitted, and circumstances occur that you end up doing something prohibited, that's called misasek, and you are Pater. Abaye says the only case of misasek, again, is when you had in mind to do something permitted, and a second prohibited act ends up occurring. That's misasek. But any time you had in mind to do an act and you thought you were going to do it in a permitted way, but it turned out that you did it in a prohibited way, that's not called misasek. Abaye says that's called shogeg and you're chayiv. So the Gemara says utzricha. Now we'll say, now the shaila of course becomes, why do I need 3 different cases to illustrate the same machlokes? Right? We'll say, remember again, the cutting up of the vegetables, the carrying in Rishus HaRabim, and the throwing in Rishus HaRabim are all the same case. It's all the same case. Why do I need 3 of the same case? To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Because if it would have just said the first case by the cutting up of the vegetables, Bahu ka'amarava daha lo mechavim lechaticha di isura. I understand why Rava says that you're pater in a case where what? You're cutting up the detached vegetables and you end up cutting up an attached vegetable. Rava says, why are you pater? Because it was in that case, I never had any intention for anything that is even remotely prohibited. Aval niskavin lizrok shtayim v'zarak arba. But maybe in the case number 2, where I had in mind to throw 2 amas, but instead the object goes 4 amas, the arba below tarti lo mizrakale. See, I will say here's the issue. You see, the 2 amas and 4 amas are very much interconnected. Why? For a very simple principle. You can't throw something dalar amas unless, of course, what? It first goes 2 amas. So I might have thought that Rava would agree that in a case where I threw something 2 amas, that it ends up going 4 amas. I might have thought that halacha ma'aseh, maybe Rava would agree with Abaye in that case, that in fact you should be chayiv, because ultimately again 4 can't occur without 2. So there is an overlap in the actions. I would have thought he agrees with Abaye. So therefore again we have to quote case number 2 to show that even in the case where you had in mind to throw it 2 and it goes 4, Rava still says that you are pater. First of all, as you know, there's an incredible musar in that statement also. The Gemara says, right, the arba below tarti lo mizrika. So you can't get to 4 amas without going ahead and first traveling 2 amas. I will say, if you understand as a metaphor, that dalar amas kind of represents your destination, right? Where do you want to get to in life? So sometimes, again, we become so focused on the destination, but yet we're unwilling to invest the effort into the journey, right? So I want to get to the dalar amas. I know what I want to accomplish. I want to be accomplished. I want this. I want that. That's fine, right? In Meretz Hashem, however, we should all get to the end of our dalar amas, permitted dalar amas, right? But lamaisa, you can't get to 4 without the 2, right? Any journey and any destination, by definition, carries with it many smaller steps along the way. And unless you're willing to invest in the smaller steps, you never really get to the finish lines of life. Next, so I was saying, if I would have just said at the end of the day, the third case, right? The third case was I had in mind to go ahead and I'm sorry. Aval kasavar rishus hayochav v'nimtzu rishus harabim temechavim l'zrika da'arba ema modi leila abai. But also in case number 3, right? In case number 3, where I had in mind to throw an object dalar amas, I just thought I was throwing it in rishus hayochid, but it turns out that I was throwing it in rishus harabim. I might have thought that halacha l'maisa Rava would agree with Abaye, therefore tzricha. So I will say halacha l'maisa. Therefore, we see Rava disagrees with Abaye in all 3 cases, and all 3 needed to be stated. So the Gemara is not finished yet. Tanan, avos malachos arba'im chasarachos. We'll see in the Mishnah. This is actually our next Mishnah. There are 40 malachos minus 1, 39 malachos. V'havina ban. We ask in the Gemara, minyana lamali. Why is it that I need to know the number? Al Jabal say, I could count myself. I don't need to know I don't need the Mishnah to tell me how many malachos there are. I could count it up myself. So why is the number necessary? But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shim asa'an kulam b'ha'elam echad chayiv al kol achos va'achos. To teach me a very important idea that again we've seen a million times already. That if I perform all 39 malachas in one lapse of awareness, I will be chayiv for each independent av malacha. So the Gemara says, let's analyze this. Bishlam ala Abaye. So according to Abaye, do amar kol ki agav nechayiv mishkachos la diyada di isura Shabbos v'yada la isra malachos v'kata b'shiurin. So you will say, so according to Abaye, you could set this up in the following case: that a person ultimately again knew about Shabbos and even knew about the punishments and prohibitions of Shabbos. What was his mistake? His mistake was regarding shiurim. He did not know what amount was prohibited. Or really what it's saying is, he was fuzzy on the details. So I know that at Shabbos, I know this malacha is asur, but remember again, Abba says we've seen Every malacha has a shear. Every malacha has an amount that you have to go ahead and do in order to be in violation. So according to Abaye, the case where a person could transgress all 39 malachos could even be a case where a person knows about Shabbos, knows that the malachos are prohibited, but doesn't know the shiurim for the malachos, and therefore ends up transgressing that way. Ella, however, again, according to Rava, look at Rashi's moment, Mashkachos lo, lahaish nishtachach Torahs kol hilchos Shabbos mimenu, va'afilu hachi chashiva le kizadon Shabbos, v'shigagas malachos, lichiyuve al kol chada. So we'll say, so remember again, in order to be in violation of all 39 malachas, so there has to be some level of awareness. According to Abaye, this level of awareness could take place where a person knows that it's Shabbos, knows that the malachos are asar, v'shigagas malachos kigon diyadale Shabbos bisurin, v'tab b'shiurin, shines kavim lapachos mikashir v'asa kashir. So we'll say, for example, remember, Abaye is the one. So according to Abaye, if you make a mistake in the shir with all 39 halachos, you can be chayiv 39 independent halachos chatos. Elo l'Rava damar potter, but according to Rava, ultimately again, who holds that halacha l'maisa, where a person makes a mistake in terms of the shir, he's going to be potter because he holds that that's misasek. Heichi mishkachos la bezadon Shabbos v'shigas malachos. How does he ever find a case, ultimately again, where there's intentionality for Shabbos, but shogig regarding the malachos? So if he holds like Rabbi, so it makes sense. You could find this if he holds like Rabbi Yochanan the Amar kevan sheshagag bekares afa pisha hizid belav. So also remember again, this goes back to the machlokes of Yochanan and Shlakish that we had last week, namely the definition of shogeg. According to Rabbi Yochanan and Rabosai, if a person ultimately again knows that it's Shabbos, knows the malachos, but doesn't know that intentional violation of malachos carries with it a chi of kares, so he doesn't know about the chi of kares, Rabbi Yochanan holds that's shogeg. Amazing, that's shogeg. Afa pisha hezid belav, even though a person intentionally violated Shabbos, violated the lav, meshkachas lo diyada lo l'Shabbos belav. He knows ultimately again that Shabbos is prohibited by a lav, but ultimately what? So he knows that it's Shabbos. He knows that the malachos are asar. He doesn't know about kares. Ella isavala kreb Shimon Lakish da amar ad sheyishkog belav ubekares. But if Rav would hold like Reish Lakish, who holds that halacha lamaisa, it's only called shogeg if a person is unaware regarding the lav and the kares. Diyada la l'Shabbos b'mai. Then how can you generate a level of awareness by Shabbos that would create this situation of multiple liabilities? To which the Gemara gives the answer that we've given many times already. Diyada betchumin. He knows at least about the halachos of tchum, Shabbos boundaries, va'ali b'd Rabbi Akiva. And in accordance with Rabbi Akiva, who holds that halacha l'maisa, the laws of tchum Shabbos are a d'oraisa. Fine, so we'll say, so remember, we already saw yesterday, but I'll review it again now. How do we paskin in this machlokes Abaye and Rava, which is a yisodistic machlokes about the definition of misasek? So we saw, and the Rambam holds like Rava. So essentially the Rambam, and by the way, I'll just point out, the Rambam goes ahead and the Rambam goes ahead and actually outlines all of these cases. He actually goes through each and every one of these cases of the Gemara. But the principle that the Rambam espouses, which is the principle we need, is in Perek Aleph, Hilchos Shabbos. It also appears in Hilchos Shkagos, but I quoted to you from Hilchos Shabbos. So in Perek Aleph, so again he says, this is Perek Aleph Halacha Ches, Kala Niskavein La'asos Melacha, V'na'asis lo Melacha Acheres, Shalonis Kavein lo. So this is the principle. Anytime on Shabbos you do a malacha, you had in mind to do malacha A, which again was totally permitted. And it turns out that you do malacha B, he says, pater aleha lefi shelo na'asis machshavto. Ultimately, again, you are pater. Why? Because your intention did not materialize. Now I will say there is a bigger construct that is at work over here, a framework that's at work over here, which we're going to see, which is the concept of meleches machshavas. On Shabbos, One is only chayiv for constructive malacha. And we're going to see that constructive really is defined in two ways. Constructive is defined objectively. The malacha accomplishes something purposeful and good. And B, that it was your intention, that you had intention. So intentionality and quote-unquote positive results. I don't mean positive like good, because remember you're violating Shabbos, but positive in terms of like a constructive result. So I will say, so therefore here what the Rambam is saying over here is as follows. Anytime that you have in mind to do A, but it turns out that you ended up doing B. Now by the way, B doesn't have to be a separate unrelated malacha. B could just be another unintended form of the malacha that you had originally intended to do. So the Rambam says essentially we adopt Rava's definition of misasek, and therefore again the Rambam goes through all these cases. He says Ketzad Zarak Evan Ochitz Bechavera Bebehema. See, he actually brings down a number of different cases. We'll see some of them in the Gemara in just a little bit. Niskavin la'asos davar hamuter va'asr davar achar. Person had in mind, here listen to what he quotes, person had in mind to do something muter, permitted, but instead he ends up doing something prohibited. Kigon sheniskavin lachtoch es hatalush v'chatach es hamuchuber. This is case number one. Person had in mind to go ahead and cut that which was detached, and he ends up cutting something that was attached. What's the halacha? Eino chayiv klum. There's no chayiv. That's called misasek. V'chein kol kiyotzebaz. And the Rambam actually goes through all the cases. Halacha l'maisa, we paskin like Rava. The Rambam paskins like Rava that the definition of misasek is any time that you went ahead and had in mind to do something permitted, you end up doing something prohibited, even if it's in the same malacha. That's called misasek, and you are potter. Beautiful. We both say with that, we now close out this sugya, and we come to a new Mishnah. Both say now this is actually a very exciting Mishnah that's going to be with us for a little bit of time. This is the malacha, not too long, 2-3 days. 3 days. This is the Mishnah of the 39 malachas. So again, it's incredible. We are 73 blot into Shabbos, right? And now we've quoted actually this Mishnah, at least the opening line of the Mishnah, so many times. Yet here is the actual Mishnah. We're going to go through all Lamites Malachos. So if you see that your chaver is not, I guess you can see on the participants who's on. So again, if you have a chaver who's not on, this is a great time to join in, and because this mamish brand new sugya. Brand new sugya. By the way, Jeremy, also you'll send me a list of who's on this morning in Mirat Hashem, please. So let's go. All right, so with that, let's go. Mishnah. Avos malachos arboim chasarachos. There are 40 minus 1 malachas. Again, so we'll say, so rather you're going to see also a lot of the Gemaras we've already seen quoted a number of different times. So there are 40 minus 1 malachas. And I will say, let's go through all of them now. Hazorea. So I'll say, we'll define, in other words, we'll see them in the Gemara also. Hazorea. So Zorea is planting, or seeding, I should say. Choresh, plowing. Kotzer, reaping or harvesting. Ma'amer. Now I will say, Ma'amer, we're going to see, means moving things into piles. Now I will say, these first category of malachos are the malachos associated with grain. With grain, right? So you plant the seeds, you plow the fields, we'll discuss that order. You reap or you harvest the grain. You gather everything into a pile. Dush is threshing. This is where you remove the kernels of wheat from the chaff. Zora is winnowing. Rashi says, Birachas l'ruach. So we'll say winnowing, what they used to do is, they would take like a pitchfork, you would go, still do this today, take a pitchfork, you go ahead and you plunge it into the wheat, you throw the wheat up, and the wind actually removes the chaff, and the kernels settle back down. That's Zora. Haborer, borer means separating out, again, impurities or wheat from chaff. Tochein, grinding. Meraked, sifting. Losh, kneading. Ofe, baking. So we'll say, now, what this is called in Hilchos Shabbos is Sidura de Pas. All the malachos that you just saw over here are the malachos that are necessary for the production of bread. Sidur de Pas, this is the order of Pas. Now Rashi here raises something amazing. Look at Rashi. Ha'ofeh, Rashi says, Lo haba b'mishkan, there's only one problem. We'll say we assume that the malachos of the not we assume, the malachos of Shabbos come from the malachos of the Mishkan. Namely, anything that was done in the creation of the Mishkan becomes one of the 39 malachos of Shabbos. Rashi points out, but baking bread was not part of the construction of the Mishkan. There is no afiyah by the construction of the Mishkan. So look what Rashi writes. This is actually incredible. Lo havu Mishkan, de lo shayach b'pas. These malachos are necessary for the production of bread. Upas lo shaycha b'malachas Mishkan. And there's nothing. What does bread have to do with the construction of the Mishkan? Aval kulhu kamaisa havi b'samamanim shal tzeva tchilas va'agaman v'solah shani u'b'gemara parach deshavik tanim v'ashal davi b'samanim v'nakit ofeh. So we'll say, as we're going to see, so Rashi understands, although we're calling, this sounds like for bread, this is also the same process that was employed for the production of dyes. Remember again, the Mishkan had dyed wool, right? Dyed wool and dyed or tachash skins. So this process that we just outlined over here was necessary for the production of dyes, for the dyeing of the different curtains and skins of the Mishkan. Now we'll say, now the truth is, we'll also see that the simpler answer is the malachos are not just the things that were done for the construction of the Mishkan, but they're also related to the running of the Mishkan. So in the running of the Mishkan, ultimately, of course, again, baking of bread was a necessity, specifically, again, when it comes to lechem apanim. But again, Rashi's understanding over here is this first set of malachos that we call sidura de pas is in fact not really for bread, but for the production of dyes. Good. Next category. Hagozes esatsemer. So one who goes ahead and shears wool. So shearing wool is the malach of gozes. V'hamalavno. So we'll say so. And again, one who whitens the wool. Really what it means is really the cleaning of the wool. V'hamenaftso, and combing out the wool. V'hatsovo, dyeing of the wool. V'hatava, spinning of the wool. V'hamesach. So we'll say mesach, we're going to see, means mounting of the warp thread. These are things to do with the loom, as we'll see. Va'ose shnei batenirin, these are also literally, again, setting up the two heddles. These are parts of the loom. We'll see all of this in the Gemara. Va'orek shnei chutin, one who weaves two strings. Va'potzea shnei chutin, or one who unravels two strings. Rashi says over here, potzea, first wide line, menatek, means cutting off, really means cutting off excess string. Menatek pamim sheyesh b'shnei chutin yoser midai. Sometimes the strings that you would make, that you would fashion, had too much thread on them, and you would have to go ahead and remove some of the extra thread. So v'hamatir, right? V'hamatir. I'm sorry. Hakosher v'hamatir, tying and untying. V'tofer shtei tfiros, or one who goes ahead and stitches or sews two stitches. HaKorea amanas litvar, one who tears on the condition ultimately again to sew up. Now both say this is actually very important to define over here. So we know Korea, tearing, is one of the 39 malachos. But I will remember again what we said before, malachos are only chai. One is only chai for malachos if done in a constructive way. So Korea, by definition, tearing, usually appears to be a destructive act. But as we're going to see, tearing was done in the Mishkan for a constructive purpose. It was tearing on the condition to sew up. When would that come up? We'll say, look at Rashi. This is actually quite amazing. Amanas litfar, Rashi says, second wide line in Rashi on the bottom. Pamim sharnekev agul ve'eno yochal letofra yafa ele imkin koro kidim efarish b'gimara aval korea shalom litfar lahav Mishkan. Let's listen to this. If a rip developed in one of the curtains, so we'll say, so the image that Rashi is painting is as follows. Imagine for a moment you have like a circular rip in one of the curtains. I will say, remember again, if it's just a rip straight down, you could sew that up. If it's a circular rip, sometimes what they had to do was remove a square of material, cut out a square of material, and repatch it. So that would be a case of Korea. You were tearing out a piece of the curtain, but for what purpose? Amanas litfar, on the condition ultimately again to tie something else in. So this is really incredible. So although we call the malacha korea, the malacha is called tearing, but lamais at the end of the day, one is only chayav for tearing if it was done with the purpose ultimately of repairing. Quite amazing. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. So hatzad tzvi, if one goes ahead and captures or traps a deer. Now again, I will say, lav dafka, that this is a deer. It means trapping an animal. Vashochto, or one slaughters an animal. Hamafshito, one removes the hide of an animal. Hamolcho, one salts an animal. Remember again, where does this come up in the Mishkan? The Mishkan used animal skins. Specifically, again, the skin from the animal called the tachash. Remember, again, we spoke about this, the tachash animal. What was the nature of the tachash animal? So therefore, anything to do with trapping, slaughtering, and preparing the hides of an animal will ultimately, again, become part of Meleches Shabbos. V'amafshito, skinning the hide. Hamocho, salting it, because this was part of the tanning process. Hama'abed es oro, tanning the hide. V'amamachko, smoothing it. Hamechatcho, cutting it according to size. Hakosev shtei osios, writing 2 letters on Shabbos is going to be an Isser Da'oraisa. Now I both say, interestingly enough, we will see, Rashi says over here, Kosev, he goes, V'amochek amanas lichtov shtei osios, or if one erases on the condition to go ahead and write 2 letters. So say what's interesting over here is, if you notice, Mechika and Korea, right, erasing and tearing themselves both seem to be destructive acts. And in general, one is not chayiv on Shabbos for destructive acts. That's why you see both of these malachos were done for constructive purposes. It's erasing so as to clear out space to write. It's tearing, right? It's tearing in order to go ahead and re-sew. So actually, Rashi points out there, Kosivu Mochik, Likaman Mefarish Lamaimi Boy Le Mishkan, Shekin Roshmin Al Karshia Mishkan, Leda Eza Ben Zugo, Vikosiv Os Bazu, Vaos Bazu, Umochik, Pamam Shatar. Both is actually quite amazing. Where was writing done in the Mishkan? This is incredible. Writing was done was they labeled the boards of the Mishkan. They labeled the boards of the Mishkan. Why? Because the Rebbe was important that when they deconstructed the Mishkan, when they put it back up, that every board went back in its appropriate place. So in order to ensure that, what they did was they went ahead and they labeled it. So Aleph Aleph, Beis Beis, so you knew which boards went next to each other, Aleph Beis, however they labeled it. We'll say, what I'll point out is something amazing, just as an aside. There are some of the Rishonim that bring down that one should be makbid about this when putting up their sukkah as well. That when putting up your sukkah, you should always make sure to put your boards in, assuming you use boards, to put your boards in the same place. Why? Because again, there are many similarities between the sukkah and the mishkan, and just like again in the mishkan, the boards were always put up in the same place. By sukkah also, they're trying to bring down that the board should be put up in the same place as well. Interesting. Okay, the Gemara goes weiter. Habona, building, soser, demolishing, as we're going to see, demolition is the same idea. One is only chayav for demolition when one is doing it for the intention of building. Hamechabe, extinguishing, mavir, kindling, make bepatish. They will say Makke b'patish literally means delivering the final hammer blow. Now, what is this exactly? So I will say, if you look at Rashi, Makke b'patish hugimar kol malacha. So it says we're going to see, as opposed to every other malacha, which is very specific, Makke b'patish is kind of like a catch-all. Makke b'patish means any time you complete something, that's called delivering the final hammer blow, and that is the 39th category of malacha. Now, interestingly enough, on a literal sense, Rashi says, Shekein uman make bekornus alastan lahachliko bigmar malacha. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the actual make b'patish was, if you are a craftsman and you are making something, when you finished your construction project, what would craftsmen do? They would bang their hammer against like a piece of metal, just a solid chunk of metal. Why? To smooth out the hammer. See, Rabosai, again, they're talking about, they don't have refined metal like we have it today. So Lamaisa, when you're building something, the hammer gets nicked, the metal like changes shape a little bit. So when you finished, you would be makeh the patish. You would hit the hammer against a piece of metal to smooth out the hammer. That was the completion, so to speak, of the project. So we'll say, so this is very interesting. So, but what's fascinating, and again, I will spend some time on this, but what's very unique here is the following. Every malacha that we've seen and will continue to see is very specific. Very specific. What's very interesting to see is that makeh bepatish is kind of like a general catch-all. A general catch-all that it's whenever it's the final step on any particular malacha, that's the makeh bepatish. We'll define all of this. Hamotzi mirashus l'rishus, and we'll say similarly hotza. Hotza, if you go ahead and you take something from one domain to another, that is also a malacha on Shabbos. So what's interestingly enough, Rashi just points out over here that kindling and extinguishing a fire, Rashi points out over here, where was this done in the Mishkan? This was done underneath. Remember again, they would boil up the herbs to create dye. So obviously again, you had to put the cauldron or the pot of the herbs on top of a fire. So therefore, again, there was a kindling and there was also extinguishing. Hare elu avos melachos arba'im chaser achos. Says the Mishnah, now you see the total list of malachos, 40 minus 1. All 39 malachos, we'll say, in this Mishnah. A really, really incredible Mishnah. Good, Amud Beis, here we go. So, Minyana Lamali, so says the Gemara, I don't understand. Why do I need the number? So we've seen this a million times already. Why do I need the number? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shimasan, Kulam HaMalachat Chayiv. Rabbi Yochanan says to teach us that what? That halacha lamaisa, if you went ahead and you ended up doing all of the malachas in one ha'elam, in one lapse of awareness, that halacha lamaisa, you will be chayiv for each and every one. So if all 39 malachas were performed chas v'shalom in one lapse of awareness, one would be chayiv 39 chatos. Incredible. Hazorea v'achorish. So we'll say this is very interesting. So remember, the Mishnah, when speaking about the order, what we call sidur de pas, the order of making bread, but Rashi really understood as the order for the creation of dye, of dyes, ultimately again through the order of creation of dyes through the what we call the process for creating dyes, or for creating dye. So the Gemara says the order was zorea, which means planting, right? Planting and plowing, or sowing and plowing. Says the Gemara, michti, michrav karvi bereisha, lisni chorish vada lisni zorea. The order seems wrong. But I'll say everyone knows, even us non-farmer knows, that the first thing you do is you plow the field. That's the first thing. First you plow, then you put in the seeds. So we'll say, but yeah, why does the Mishnah say putting in the seeds and then plowing? What's the pshat? So Tana be'Eretz Yisrael kai. So we'll say, so the Tana's talking is in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore he's discussing what they do in Eretz Yisrael. What did they do in Eretz Yisrael? Tizari bereisha v'hada karvi. Oh, because in Eretz Yisrael we'll say, what do? First they put the seeds in the ground, and then ultimately again they plow. We'll say, what's the pshat? Look at Rashi, just one Eretz Yisrael. Kashehi, the earth is very hard. Ve'in yochel lechasos below charisha. Va'ashmo'inan nami charishahi. So as I say, interestingly enough, so apparently in Eretz Yisrael, the way that they used to plant was how? Because the earth was hard, they would first put the seeds on the ground, and then they would plow over the seeds, ultimately again to go ahead and put the seeds in. Now, the truth is, really what it means is as follows. But Pashas, what it means is, in Eretz Yisrael, they also plowed first. They plowed, then put the seeds in, and then what it sounds like is they plowed a second time. And they plowed a second time in order to ensure that ultimately, again, the seeds would really be deep into the ground. The Mishnah is teaching me that even that second act of plowing is still called charisha. Look at Rashi once more. Rashi says over here, Rashi says, "Kashehi ve'yochel lechasas below charisha ve'ashmo'inon tahanami charishahi." It's coming to teaching ultimately again that this second act of charisha is called charisha as well. Good. So the Gemara goes right there. Tana hazorea v'hazomer v'hanotea v'hamavrich v'hamarkiv kular malacha achasin. So we'll say, let's analyze this. So now zorea. So we'll say zorea means planting. Zorea means planting, right? So zomer also means pruning. So pruning means, right, removing excess branches from a tree. Notea. Notea also means planting. Now, interestingly enough, what zorea is to seeds, notea is to trees, right? So it means planting something in the ground. V'hamavrich. So we'll say mavrich, we're going to see means bending vines. Sometimes if you wanted to plant a new grapevine, so we'll say, what would you do? You just take the top part of the vine that's growing out of the ground, you bend it into the ground, right? You cover it, so you let it take root like that, and then you snip it in the middle, and ta-da, you have two vines. That's called the process of mavrich. So I say, or markiv. Markiv means grafting trees. We'll say all of these kulan malacha achasim. We'll say these are all one malacha. Now, what does this mean? We'll say this is very important. Look at Rashi. Rashi says kulan malacha achasim. Dizomer nami litzamuchi ilanahu. Because we'll say ultimately again, all of these things that are being done for the purpose of allowing the tree or allowing something to grow. The nafkamina di avile kulan bahadi zorea lo mechayit elachada. The osa malacha sarbe zorea ab malacha v'notea nami ab malacha u'dahainu zorea ela shezeb bezram v'zebi ilanos v'chi marvich u'markiv ela zomer aval zomer told us. So we'll say all of these things, all of these malachos that are mentioned over here, all fall under the category of Zorea. So Zorea is the Av Malacha. By the way, Zorea and Notea are the same Av, right? They're both planting. Again, just as Rashi pointed out, Zorea is for seeds, and Notea is for plants or for trees, but it's the same Av Malacha. I will say what it's saying over here is as follows. All of these other activities that are there to facilitate growth fall under the category of Zorea. So just like Zorea means planting to facilitate growth, so too anything you do to facilitate growth is going to be asur. So we'll say, therefore pruning. Why do you prune? You prune to facilitate growth. That falls under the malacha of Zorea or Notea. Ultimately, again, why do you graft? Facilitate growth. Falls under the category of Zorea. Why do you go ahead and bend vines? Facilitate growth. That's all Zorea. So the Gemara says, okay, my kamash malan. So what's the chiddush over here? The kamash malan ha'osim malachos harim ein malacha achos eno chayiv achos eno chayiv alachos. We'll see what it was to teach you is the following. If you were to do all of these things in one lapse of awareness, so imagine for a moment in one lapse of awareness, you would plant, you would prune, you would graft, and you would bend a vine. And you did all of this in one lapse, you'd only be chayiv once. Why? Because it's all the same malacha of Zorea. So we'll say, so we're creating definitions now. Zorea doesn't simply mean planting, but the malacha of Zorea / Notea means anything you do in something growing out of the ground to facilitate growth is going to be asur al Zorea. Next. Amar Rab Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rab Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rab Yami, Zomer chayiv mishum Notea. So we'll say Zomer, which is pruning. If you prune a tree, right? Halacha l'maisa. Interestingly enough, I will say, as much as remember what's pruning, you're cutting stuff off. Even though you're cutting stuff off, you're in violation of the malacha of planting. Interesting, right? Because remember again, the malacha of planting means I'm trying to facilitate growth. Pruning facilitates growth. Therefore, you're chayiv because of notea. Notea by zorea. V'hanotea, v'hamavrich, v'hamarkiv, chayiv mishum zorea. And we'll say one who plants trees, or ultimately again, mavrich is bending of the vines, grafting is chay mishum zorea. Mishum zorea mishum notea lo. Are you saying that it's chay because of zorea and not notea? To which the Gemara says, ema af mishum zorea. Rather, no, it means he's chayiv even because of zorea. I will say, so again, to be clear, zorea and notea are the same malacha. It's the same exact malacha. It's just different, just a different word, because zorea is for seeds, notea ultimately again is for a tree. So I'll say, so again, very important. So we now have a definition. Zorea / notea means planting, right? Zorea seeds and notea is trees or other plants. Anything which facilitates growth is chayiv under Zorea. Amar Rav Kahana, Zomer, let's listen to this. What happens if a person prunes? V'tzarech le'etzim. But you need the trees. So we'll say, so remember again, under normal circumstances, when you prune, why are you pruning? To facilitate growth. In this case, watch what's happening over here. I'm pruning my tree, right? Because I'm trying to fix the tree. But I also need the wood. I need the wood. I'm going to use the wood for my fireplace. So what's the halacha in this case? Chayiv shtayim. And we'll say in that case, you're chayiv twice. Why? Achas mishum kotzer, va'achas mishum noteya. One time because of kotzer, because let's remember again, what's kotzer? We're going to the definition of ketzira is oker davar mimokum gidulo. When you uproot something from the place that it grows. So therefore, again, when you cut down trees, when you cut down branches, that's kotzer. So I'm lichai because I want the wood, but I'm also chai because of zoreya, because through pruning I'm facilitating growth. So you understand what's happening over here? If you were pruning, but you didn't want the wood, the only thing you're chayiv for is zoreya, facilitating growth. But if you're pruning and you want the wood, that's two malachas. Zoreya for pruning, because you're facilitating growth in the tree, and kotzer, because halacha l'maisa, you want the wood. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Am Rabbi Yosef, Hayman de katel aspasta chayiv shtayim. Similarly, someone who cuts down aspasta, then I will say aspasta was some type of fast-growing plant that people used for animal food. So when you cut down aspasta, you're chayiv twice. Why are you chayiv twice? Achas mishum kotzer. Number one, ketzira. You're cutting off something that is growing from the ground. Kotzer. The achas mishum noteya. And one because we'll say why. Aspasta, if you look at Rashi says over here, aspasta grows back very quickly. So we'll say, so sometimes what people would do is they would cut down the aspasta. Why? To allow new aspasta to grow. So when you cut down aspasta, it's possibly going to be chayiv for two things. Number one, kotzer, because you're cutting down something in order to be that's growing from the ground. And number two, you're cutting down something so as to enable future growth, which is going to be asra as well. Amar Abaye, Hayman dekaniv silka. Similarly, again, if one cuts beets, chayiv shtayim, one could potentially be chayiv twice. Why? Achas mishum kotzer. One, because I'm cutting off something that is attached to the ground. The achas mishum zoreya. And number two, because once you cut down beets, it allows new beets to grow. So I will say, what you begin to see is as follows. That halacha l'maisa. Now remember, all of this is dependent on what your intent is. It all goes back to the pruning case. If you're just pruning to facilitate growth, you're only going to be chayiv because of zoreya. But if you're pruning because you want to facilitate growth and you want the wood, then you're chayiv twice. One because of zoreya and one because of kotzer, because of harvesting. Same in all of these cases. If you cut down aspasta because ultimately, again, you want new aspasta to grow, you might be chayiv. Well, you'll be chayiv also twice because one because of kotzer, you're uprooting something, and one because of zoreya, you're allowing new aspasta to grow. So we'll say, so again, amazingly enough, you could have, which, by the way, you understand like the incredible novelty in this. You would have thought that the malachos of zoreya and kotzer are opposite malachos, right? Zoreya is planting, kotzer is harvesting. But what you begin to see is one act could create dual violation, right? One act of cutting something down is kotzer, but if that act of cutting something down enables something new to grow, that's called zoreya. Quite amazing. We'll do one more line. Tana, hachorish v'achover v'achoritz. Similarly, again, chorish Shabbos means plowing. Chofer means digging. Choretz means creating a furrow. Kulan malacha achasim. These are all one malacha. All one malacha. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Sheshes, Haisalo gav shushis v'nat. So we'll stop over here. We'll begin tomorrow with Rav Sheshes. We'll pick up over here. We'll get into these incredible sugyas. So now we have our 39 malachas. The interesting part we're going to see is when you could have one act which ultimately covers multiple malachas. Yes, Hashem to be continued tomorrow. Shkach, we'll say.